Hello. In this video, we will take examples of three videos of the popular culture from YouTube to understand what liberalism is. Liberalism is the ruling ideology of capitalism. It's the thought of the modern world. It's like the water we swim in. Our textbooks, our media, press, everything is written in liberalism and we think in liberalism. So it's hard to see it. And I'll try to show you how to read between the lines. And of course, it's an historical process, and I will also tell you why we are able to see liberalism and now. Okay, now in the first video, we are looking at a skit by All India Bakchod, where these young adults in Mumbai are having a party, and these adults maybe come from smaller cities, towns, etc. But in Mumbai, they have found freedom, a freedom to have independent existence because they have uh, salaries and they are far from their family, so they can rent a house. They have a right to rent the house, and they have a right to privacy and so on. So they are having a party. There is alcohol which is legal, and the girls have come to this place, his guy's place, and that is also legal, which seems like a weird thing to talk about, that it is legal, but in India it's a big problem. We are moving away from a feudal society to a capitalist liberal society, from a caste and patriarchal society to this new mode of social life and production, that is capitalism. And then there's a transition, and this is where the tension comes in, and this is where the video comes in. The some neighbor shows up and he has problems with everything. He thinks they're all having sex and all doing drugs, and why are there unmarried people in the same room, and how dare you have a party, and so on and so on. And truly he has no reason to be mad. He has no legal right to be mad, and he's talking about, because you are like this, because you are dirty like this is why we don't allow bachelors. And here is where the bachelor protagonist gives his passionate speech. And this is a very nice speech. He asserts his rights as an individual that he has gained as a worker. He's talking about how his work exploits him, and when he comes to his home, why is it anybody else's business that he has maybe a bottle of beer or two? And why did others care if he invites girls over? And why do others care what he does with anyone with their consent? And why do others have problem with what people do consensually behind closed walls? And this tension, this assertion of rights, is against the older system of family dominated life. You couldn't just have, a separate job, a different line of work in another city, an independent existence of your own. Now you could leave your parents if you want to, but previously it wasn't possible. Now you could marry whoever you want to, or not marry. Previously it wasn't possible. You can have privacy. You can defend yourself against these incursions in your privacy, which wasn't possible previously. But again, the video ends with him saying that yes, I assert my rights, we will keep doing this, do whatever you want. And of course, the neighbors have a right, they have this society, and they can vote him out, and that's what they do. They vote him out. They Then he loses the house, like here we see, because they still have power. Now this is the first essence of liberalism that I want to show you. It's about the individual liberties of people, and it's important to note that this shift has occurred because we have changed the production system, the economic mode of production, and social life that came with it. So let me show you the graphic here. The base is like the just pause and you can take a look at the graphic here. And because the base has changed, the superstructure, the ideology, the idea of human rights and everything has come with it, and we are transitioning into it, and we have to assert it. So when it comes to fighting against the caste system and fighting against the feudal ways of life, then of course, being a liberal is the historically progressive thing to do. But liberalism, of course, has now liberals, or the in general the bourgeois, the class that used to be a middle class, the traders and the merchants, etc., guild masters, they conquered the world and they became the ruling class. Previously the ruling class were the aristocrats, the kings, and the people who worked were confined to a land and confined to a profession and so on, which didn't used to be the case, which doesn't it has ceased to be the case in most of the world, because the ruling class has, which is now the ruling class, conquered the world, established the liberal democracies, enriched themselves and so on, and now liberalism is the ruling ideology. previously it was different. It was religion. It was like the king is the greatest, the royal family is like divine and we should kiss their feet and so on. And liberals, I mean bourgeoisie, successfully defeated that, and for that we thank them. But now they have established their dominance, and their right to private wealth is also as questionable to the king's divine right to rule. And again, since capitalism, we live in capitalism, everything is written in the language of liberalism. So in the second video that I want to show you, it's from the USA, and
We walked down the hallway.
it's so this is a TV series from which is shot recently, but it shows events occurring in like the 1980s. And here, what we have is Mary, who is she's not a Catholic woman, she's a Protestant woman. That's apparently important. She's a Christian woman, she's a religious woman who is disturbed by her game that her child is playing. It has demons and monsters, and she thinks that it goes against the teachings of Bible. Now here I want you to read between the lines. This is a very important scene. I think it really captures the essence of liberalism. So she's going to her child's friend's parents and asking them whether you have a problem with this. And here is where now we will have audio with us, and then I will first try to guess what I'm going to say. And let's watch the video now.
Change your mind. The problem is, it goes against the teachings of the church.
All right, listen to me. A problem is starving to death in a communist re-education camp. A problem is not seeing your family for many years while you remove landmines from the Ho Chi Minh Trail. A Game Boys play with make-believe demons? Not a problem.
Well, I think they can all be problems.
Đồng ý với cậu ấy, cô sẽ đi thôi.
I'm sorry. I agree with you. I will talk to Tam.
Oh, good. Thank you. Well, bye.
So if you watch this video through the lens of liberalism, this is what you would see. A stupid white woman walks in, and she has these issues with the book because she's a religious nut, and really it's not an issue. The Vietnamese people who have suffered so much find it ridiculous that this woman has this stupid things too. I mean, is this a problem? No, the problem is what we suffered in the war. And of course this white woman has no problem, he no idea about what real suffering is. And then they're also like his wife is also disrespectful towards her because it's deserved, right? Like white people, they don't know, they are the rich, like uh, they're just, you know, stupid racists or whatever, so it just be racist back to them, and then she goes away. But here is what the video really is, and here is what I would, why this captures the essence of liberalism. First, who is the, like, the bad person here is a working class white person from the southern states. So this favorite villain of liberals when they write books, like the How to Kill a Mockingbird. I'll come to that in a different video maybe. And the hero, I mean the good person here, or the more rational person here, is the Vietnamese person. It almost would seem like it's an anti-colonial message, but it's really an imperialist message. And here is where liberalism makes it clear that it's a capitalist ideology. It's not a progressive ideology anymore, it's a conservative ideology, because it tries to conserve the world that we live in. It tries to conserve the status quo, tries to conserve the US empire. And here is like precisely where you hear it.
Of the church.
All right, listen to me. A problem is starving to death in a communist re-education camp.
Did you get it? The problem is starving to death in a communist re-education camp. That means this man fought for the South Vietnamese, he fought for the US, he fought against his own, the workers and peasants of his own country who are fighting for the freedom of their lands. It's not that he has suffered as a revolutionary. He suffered because he was an anti-communist, he was like a terrorist down there. And of course, after the war is over, after the South Vietnamese regime has been defeated, US soldiers have been sent back, this guy, a traitor to his country and to humanity by the way, now he has fled to the US because he was put in a re-education camp. Of course, what would you do to people who have been brainwashed into killing their own people? You have to give them some training and give them perspective of why the war was fought. But now he's fled into the US, he's set up his shop, and now he'll spend his life getting the mic to talk about how horrible it was in the communist Vietnam or whatever. And so what the message really here is that yes, the struggle exists, that the global south, there are so many problems, and the problem, what is the problem? That the fight for freedom is a fight against communism, really? Do you mean to say that millions of communists in Vietnam gave their lives for the revolution because they want to live under a dictatorship? Really? The real struggle in Vietnam is against imperialism. It's against the French and the Japanese and the French and the US. That's the struggle. But does he fight on that side? No, he fights on the side of the empire. And we are made to feel like, oh, this person has suffered, rightfully so. And then you see that liberalism, while it gives this pseudo representation towards the struggle of the global south, it gives the representation to the ruling classes of each of these countries. Like for example, if it ever puts a Cuban on, gives them a mic, then it would be like a sugar plantation owner who was giving like pennies and employing all these people and impoverishing them. He wouldn't give the mic to a revolutionary who fought and found freedom in socialism. No, no. So of course, this is an imperialist message. This is not an imperialist message, but then liberalism has hidden it so perfectly. And then again, also notice that the white person is the villain. She's a working class woman. She is the favorite scapegoat of villains. I will just talk about How to Kill a Mockingbird for like 30 seconds. In that book, the the cop is a good person, the judge is a good person, the jailer who shoots an innocent the black man is a good person, even the people of a lynch mob who are white people are also good people. So who is the villain here? It's the redneck, it's the poor person who lives off of welfare checks and he has no job, he's unemployed. He's like he is the responsible person for racism, and not the structure. And even the capitalist, even the person who employs black people, he's also the good person. So everyone like in power is actually the good person, and who is not, who's the villain? It's the poor. You see this in the way that Democrats in the US talk about Republicans. They are like, oh, it's because of the stupid illiterate people who vote for Trump and from the Bible Belt or whatever. Their hate really goes against the poorest of people. It's called punching down in comedy. Okay, let's move on to the third video where it's very naked how liberals, how progressivism in liberals is about. Here you have it's about when Trump was talking about deporting the uh, Latin Americans from USA, and this is back in 2016. He started doing that now, but back then he had started rallying for it, and this is how this liberal defends, like he opposes that motion of Trump.
If you kick every Latino out of this country, then who is going to be cleaning your toilet, Donald Trump?
Oh, that's
This is so. The fact is that the liberal democracies that we have, there are legitimate political differences between the ruling parties and the ruling class. It's not that it's a monolith and they oppress the workers. They oppress the workers together. When it comes to working class rights, they are united, but they actually have differences. So for example, when it comes to the rights of immigrants, undocumented immigrants, one class benefits from it, like the farmers and so on. They get very cheap unpaid, I mean not unpaid, almost unpaid, very cheap labor from the undocumented immigrants, and the other class doesn't. They get their money from elsewhere, maybe by bombing a Middle Eastern country and stealing their gold, or maybe by enslaving children in Congo for cobalt. So they can use that point for politics to divide workers and get the votes that they need, and then this becomes a political issue. So this is also liberalism, and this is what liberalism is. Actually, there is a subreddit called Shit Liberals Say, and that would really help you see liberalism from a different perspective. Now the question comes, how are we able to see liberalism? Because if it's like the water that we swim in, we shouldn't see it. And the reason is, while capitalism developed, it also created this new class of people called the working class, what we call the proletariat. So the previously that uh, the concept of a worker did not exist. Who is a worker? Worker is someone who can only make a living through the sale of his labor. His existence depends on the need of his labor. He has nothing to his name. He has no land, he has no factories, he can't employ others. He has no other way of earning a life than to sell his labor hourly. So it has created this new class of people which did not previously exist. For example, in pre-capitalism, we had feudalism where you would do what your father did, and you had that means like if your job was making pots, then you made the pots at home, and you had that entire setup at your home to your name. If you were a peasant, you had the land and you could till the land, you could grow fruit. Yes, the lords would take most of it away, but you still had that. Your existence was guaranteed in that way, which is not the case now. It has created this untethered class of humans, working class, and as a working class, when we start talking to each other, we get the consciousness, a new consciousness, which is not the same as the ruling ideology. The ruling ideology of liberalism serves the ruling class, the bourgeoisie, the property owners. Within the working class, the ideology of working class is communism and not liberalism. And this is why, because we are becoming a stronger class as an independent class, we can have our own discussion and we can identify liberalism. And now we think in this new framework of thought, communism. Yes, maybe something else would replace it. At the moment we are here, where liberalism used to be, just before it took over the world. And even liberalism was like a radical thought. Like, for example, Voltaire, Voltaire, Vol I don't know, Voltaire. Yeah, so even in his time, even though he was like a rich man and so on, his thoughts were radically revolutionary back then, and even maybe even now. And it was very strange for people to go against religion, which is now possible. It's possible to live without religion. It's possible to have a workplace where people are of different religions, and then the ruling ideology is like, yes, it's secular. You can keep your religions at your home, and when you come to work, you're just workers. Okay, 17 minutes. I re-recorded this whole video just to make it shorter, but I made it 2 minutes longer.